The sky was silent. No one could imagine that at that moment, at an altitude of only 30 meters above the ground, a Ukrainian fighter was already penetrating deep into enemy territory at a furious speed, more than 850 kilometers per hour. This was not merely a patrol or a routine mission. It was an operation even the command did not place great hopes on. Its execution seemed unlikely. But the stakes were too high. The objective was 3 bridges. What was so special about that? These 3 pontoon crossings, at the Balka Zhuravka in the Luhansk region, then at the settlement of Terny, and finally at Novosadove in the Donetsk region, were key points in the supply chain. They were the routes prepared for armored movements toward a large-scale offensive. A strike on these targets would derail the enemy's entire plan, and the strike had to be delivered by a single aircraft. On board the MiG-29, a Soviet but heavily modernized fighter, were 6 guided air munitions, 2 for each target. Each was an aerial bomb weighing 250 kilograms, equipped with a guidance system. This was not improvisation. It was a surgical operation. And now he entered the air defense engagement zone. This was no movie. This was real. Each bridge was guarded by at least 1 short-range surface-to-air missile system. Threats included Pantsir systems, Tor M2, and man-portable air defense systems such as Igla-S and Verba. Mistakes were unforgivable. To avoid detection, the pilot maintained minimum altitude, only 30 meters, so low that he barely missed treetops and power lines. He used every fold of the terrain, every ravine and rise as a shield. But on the horizon appeared the first threat. Not a missile, but a signal. Electronic warfare. The Krasuka 4 system began to jam navigation signals and disable GPS. The aircraft went blind. But the pilot did not panic. He switched to the inertial navigation system, old but reliable and immune to jamming. A few more minutes passed. On the clock, 14 hours and 41 minutes. He reached the first target, the bridge at the Balka Zhuravka. The enemy suspected nothing. The element of surprise still worked. Then the pilot sharply raised the nose. From 30 meters to 2,000, almost vertically. It was a classic maneuver for a precision ordnance release. 2 bombs separated from the wings, their rocket motors ignited, and they flew forward a distance of about 12 kilometers. But the enemy reacted lightning fast. The Pantsir radar acquired the target, missiles were launched, and the guns engaged. One of the bombs was shot down, but the second broke through. A direct hit, an explosion. The bridge was destroyed. The first target eliminated. But now everything changed. The surprise was gone. The enemy knew he was here. Instantly, as soon as the first explosion thundered over the Balka Zhuravka, all the airspace within tens of kilometers lit up on the enemy air defense radars. The element of suddenness vanished. Now the MiG-29 became target number 1. But there was no time to hesitate. 2 more bridges remained ahead. To the next target, the village of Terny, there were only 15 kilometers. At that speed, this was less than 2 minutes of flight. The pilot descended again, pressing himself into the terrain back down to tree height. He understood. Now, every turn could be the last. All the air defenses in the area had been brought to combat readiness. And suddenly, a warning. But not from radar. This was an infrared threat. A team of enemy fighters lurked in the tree line, and one of them launched a man-portable air defense missile. No radio waves, only heat. And only by that could the missile home. The thermal threat detection system triggered almost instantly. The silhouette of the missile, like a comet, approached from behind. The pilot reacted without a second's delay. The system ejected a series of heat decoys, magnesium flares hotter than the engine, and, simultaneously, a sharp turn, an overload of 8G. The aircraft veered aside, and the missile, having lost its target, detonated in the air, having taken the bait. Within seconds, the MiG was already close to the second target. Here, repeating the previous maneuver, a sharp climb, was impossible. The enemy was already ready. The Pantsir radar was tracking the target. Attempting to pop up would mean certain death. The pilot made the decision to attack low and fast. Speed, maximum. Altitude, only about 150 meters. A straight approach, without deviations. The enemy's air defense system opened fire. The air was sliced by tracers. Bullets whistled past the cockpit, but the MiG did not deviate. The approach had to be precise. 2 bombs left the pylons. The guidance system was inertial, the target pre-programmed. Moments later, 2 explosions. The bridge at Turney destroyed. The second logistical artery cut. The pilot pulled the aircraft off the ground and again executed an evasive maneuver, but he already felt his resources running out. Defensive munitions, almost empty. One more missile launch and there would be nothing left to defend with. But he could not stop. Ahead lay the final stage, the most dangerous. The last target remained, the bridge by the village of Novosadov. But now the enemy was fully mobilized. Every radar, every air defense crew knew a lone MiG was in the air. And this MiG had already destroyed 2 assets, upsetting the timetable of the upcoming offensive. They were not just waiting for him, they were hunting him. The pilot knew that entering the engagement zone now would be almost suicidal. Only 2 combat units remained on the hardpoints, and the defensive suite was nearly spent. But in such moments, not only skill is shown, but character. He did not turn back. The Pantsir system covering the third bridge had been tracking the target for more than 2 minutes. At any moment, it could open fire. That meant approaching the target openly. There was no chance. The pilot found the only possible option, to use the line of hills. It was natural terrain behind which he could hide from radars up until the very moment of attack. He followed that natural cover to the last possible second, squeezing the maximum out of the aircraft's capabilities. And when only seconds remained to the target, he suddenly broke out from behind the cover at an unusual angle. This was not provided for in standard tactics, and that is exactly why it worked. Without losing a fraction of a second, he released the last 2 bombs almost in low-level flight. They went toward the target at low altitude, on a flat trajectory, and the aircraft itself, on afterburner with maximum acceleration, rushed upward and sideways, dodging bullets and possible missiles, and yes, the missiles were indeed launched, but their systems could not cope. The speed, the maneuver, and the minimal time between emerging from cover and releasing the bombs made target lock nearly impossible. Within a few seconds, 2 flashes in the area of the third bridge. Hit confirmed. All 3 targets destroyed. Mission accomplished. Now, only escape. Having dropped all the armament, the aircraft became lighter and accelerated to nearly 1.5 times the speed of sound. It dove down again, bypassed all active zones, and left the territory saturated with enemy air defenses. The entire operation, from entry to exit, took less than 10 minutes. 1 aircraft, 6 munitions, 3 critical strikes. But the strategic effect was colossal. The entire preparation for a large-scale offensive was delayed by at least 3 days. And for defense, that is an eternity. This was a risk bordering on madness. But it was also a cold calculation, supported by experience and will. Such operations do not become pages in textbooks. They are spoken of in whispers. But they are the ones that decide the outcome of entire campaigns. One aircraft against a system, and victory. And now, the question to you. What do you think was the decisive factor in this operation? The pilot's skill, the technology, the tactics, or all of them together? Write your opinion in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes.